And so that was kind of the moment where we're like, okay, if I can drive this car, we need to be in this series. And we've had good results with it so far, and that's what's pushing me on to make sure we get the chance to do it next year.
Welcome to the Details Podcast. My name is Dan Williams, the host of the Details Podcast. And today I have, another special guest, Pearce Wade, an up-and-coming racer, 15 years old from Canada. Pearce, how are you doing today?
I'm great. Thank you for having me on. How are you doing?
Fantastic. And thank you for coming on. This is going to be great. So at the Details Podcast, a lot of the race car drivers that we interview, we've interviewed race car drivers like Al Unser Jr., and then I also interview young drivers who are up and coming, and I just love the passion and the spirit that you guys have. And to tell you the truth, I'm a little bit jealous because when I was 15 years old, I just wanted to drive a car, and the best that I could get to was the riding lawnmower.
Well, I think we all started there at some point. I know I have my fair share of parking lot laps to go around, but I'm definitely lucky to be where I am and have come through karting. I know that's a privileged experience.
All right. Well, Pearce, it is great to have you on here. And for the people who are meeting you for the very first time, give me a 30-second version of who you are and what you're chasing.
My name is Pearce Wade. I'm a grade 10 student. I'm 15 years old. I'm an older brother, and I am an aspiring professional race car driver. I've loved cars since I was 3 years old. I got my first Hot Wheels car, and I never looked back. I started karting when I was 8 years old and moved through the ranks of karting, and have been offered the chance to race in the prestigious Ginetta Junior Championship next year in the UK. And my ultimate goal is to race at the highest level of endurance motorsport.
Okay. Well, what's the most exciting part of racing for you in this moment?
In this moment, it's the opportunity to see how far you can go. It's a tricky stage in a driver's career going from karts to cars, and I'm very excited to make the jump. And it's hopefully it's an exciting time to see where we can go.
Okay. And what do you think the hardest part about racing at your level is that people just don't see or realize?
I think it really does take a village to get an athlete to a professional level. That's what I've realized kind of over the past 6 months. It really does take a lot of people and a lot to line up. And so I've had some amazing experiences karting. And so the trickiest thing to line up for me right now is securing some funding to make sure I can take advantage of the opportunity that's been given to me for next year.
Yeah, racing is definitely an expensive sport to participate in, especially as you start moving up and you have bigger teams and more expensive cars and more crew members and more analytics and all of that. So securing sponsorship is incredibly important. And our common connection that we kind of synced up with was Ralph Hansen Jr., the CEO of Pegasus Marketing. Um, do you know his background and his history?
I do. The whole thing with Ralph kind of started on LinkedIn. I can't remember who connected with who first, but either way, I'm very glad I did because they've been very helpful in looking for sponsorship for me, and I'm excited to see where that partnership can go as well.
Yeah, he's the GOAT of the, racing thing. I mean, he's worked with all of these huge, crazy, big IndyCar drivers and had an amazing career, so you're in good hands with him, that is for sure. Okay, now let's go back to the beginning. I wanna do your journey from the beginning, your very first memories, to where you're going. So what was the moment that racing went from cool to, like, "I need this in my life and I have to have it"?
Honestly, it was probably my very first experience on track. My grandparents gave me a magazine for Christmas saying that all Formula One drivers started in karting. So, mom, dad, I have to go karting. We went to this little track with their rental carts, and we turned out to be the only ones there. My dad and I went on track, and it's a special memory, one that I think about a lot now as I progress through and try and make this a professional career. but it was that very first moment of racing him alone on that little track that kind of gave me a taste of what motorsport was like and what I wanted for the rest of my life.
So your dad or your grandparents were the, who supported you first the most? Which one was it?
It's it's well, my dad and both my parents really. I mean, we my dad had always been interested in cars, and my mom hadn't been interested in cars, but she's a very competitive person by herself. So we got into karting, and neither of them could mechanic the kart, and we didn't have the money to pay a mechanic. And so my mom being competitive the way she is, well, all right, I'll mechanic. And so from that moment on, I started knowing nothing about the driving, and my mom started knowing nothing about the mechanicking. And so we grew on this journey together to get to the international stage, her as a mechanic and me as a driver. And that's given me a lot of special uh, mother son time. And it's a really special connection that we have. So I'm very grateful for the time spent with her.
Okay, this is unique. Your mom was the mechanic. Did she come from
From
that kind of background?
Nope, no interest in cars, no mechanic experience. We both started from ground zero on day 1.
How it's
It's a
just
huge learning curve.
really? Holy cow, holy cow. Um, all right, well, paint the scene for me. Tell me about that first race a little bit deeper and kind of what you remember feeling like while you were, getting behind there, even though there was nobody else there, which kind of must have been strange in its own right.
I don't remember much of it, to be honest. I remember me sitting on the front straightaway with my dad lined up, and the guy, the instructor who was there, he came out with the flag, and he waved the flag, and from there, it was a bit of a blur. From that moment on, I knew that's what I wanted to do. And the next season, we joined rental carts in a club championship, and we started racing there. That was before my mom started mechanicking, um, and that went really well. I mean, I came second in my first race, and that kind of was inspiration for me. What I do remember from that race is coming off and wanting more. I finished a kart length behind the guy who won, and that moment has stuck with me as an always keep chasing, always keep striving for more, and I carry that with me to this day.
Absolutely, and that's great. It's all a state of mind. If you think you're beaten, you are. If you think you dare not, you don't. So what would you say the first real sacrifice that you had to make in your racing journey was that you can remember?
I remember when I was little, the sacrifices definitely started small. Of course, there was some time away from school, some Fridays for testing, some Mondays for recovering or driving back. But for me, it started out with those small things, those birthday parties, and it started out not financial. And as I grew through the sport, it became more and more about the financials. And my parents they've sacrificed a lot for me to get where I am, both in time and commitment and finance. And so I really owe it to them because they strive me, they keep me going. I will, I owe it to them to make this happen, and I'm very keen myself, of course, to make it happen as well.
Nice. And so if you kind of look back now from where you are with the experience you have at when you very first started, and I know it's hard to remember some of it from being that old, but what do you remember that was like something if you look back now that you were really had a misconception about or you just didn't really get, but it kind of is more clear now?
I was amazed initially at how much went into it. I mean, you have your data analysis, you have your physical ability, you have to be very professional to do what you do and compete in this sport. A lot of that because of the level of professionalism and the level of competition. You tend to grow up very quickly in motorsport. You have a level of responsibility piloting a vehicle at such a young age that is hard to find in any other sport or activity at our age. So I found that doing that kind of made me grow up and mature very quickly as both a person and an athlete, and it's something I'm very grateful for.
So now that you're in it, let's talk about how you actually start to get good. I want to talk a little bit about the grind, the training, the core, like the routine and how you level up. So walk me through a serious training week. What does work look like for you?
Being an athlete and a student is definitely a challenge. It's definitely something you have to balance, and I found my physical workout, through my school's rowing team, actually. You get up every morning, you do your sponsorship stuff on the way to school, you get through your school day, you train with the rowing team, you come back home, and you do laps on the simulator, and that's kind of a day in the life, a day in my grind to get to where I wanna go eventually.
Yeah. That's kind of interesting because if you're on a rowing team, you're on a boat with several people. When you're racing a car, even though you have a team behind you, you're out there by yourself. Where do you see ho how do you feel about that mentally? Like, what's the difference between being part of a team, part of and again, I realize you have an entire team behind you, but when you're out there in a car, you're by yourself. Tell me what the difference feels like between on a team with teammates that are working in tandem with you and then being in a car by yourself.
It was definitely an adjustment coming from the world of karting where you're definitely working with a team, but even when you're on track, you're competing against teammates and you're very much competing for yourself. So it was definitely an adjustment to join a rowing team where you're all working towards the same goal. You're working as a boat to get the best result as possible. And so it was definitely a shift of mentality and something I am lucky to have learned. It's good to be able to perform as an individual in the moment, how as well as working with the team outside of that one moment, to also being able to train with a team and race with the team in that moment. It's definitely a different mentality, but it's been very helpful for me to learn both.
So I'll tell you, sometimes when I'm at the gym, I'll get on the rowing machine and I'll do those, and those things really gas you. Also, I've, gone to, like, the go-kart tracks, and we'll go out there and ride them. I think they're, like, 10 or 11 laps, the races, and, when I'm done, my arms are fried, they're burned, you know? Um, what which one feels like it's harder physically for you when you're out there, rowing or when you're behind the wheel of a car?
That's a tricky question because they're both very different physicality. I find that on a on a rowing weekend, you come home very physically exhausted, but coming home from a karting weekend, you're physically and mentally exhausted. So I would have to say racing is more overall difficult. You're doing a lot of quick analysis, you're doing a lot of analyzation, you're doing and as well as the physical effort. So I'd say racing is more of an overall challenge. When you get home, you're completely fried.
'Kay. So right now, what's your biggest focus? Is it racecraft, braking, mindset, your fitness and training? What are you focused on right now that's really kind of pushing you forward?
There's a lot of different elements to make a professional driver. And so right now I'm kind of focused on balancing out all of those efforts. So I work on the driving on the sim. I do my exercise with the rowing team for my physical ability. But the thing I'm really trying to balance out now is managing the business side of racing, trying to find that financial support and developing a brand just as much as developing my racecraft or developing my physical ability. So for me right now, it's about finding a balance of learning all the different skills it takes to become a professional.
Okay. And this may you may have just answered this, but what's something that you feel like you're doing right now that most of the other young drivers aren't doing?
I would say LinkedIn. It's been a huge tool to help me connect with Ralph, to help me connect with potential sponsors, and it's opened up a lot of doors for me. So I feel like it's potentially underutilized, potentially not, but it's definitely been very helpful to me, and I know it's fairly uncommon.
I think of most people in 10th grade, or I think back to myself, I wrestled and, I was busy. I was busy with school and wrestling and hanging out with my friends. Where the heck do you find the time and the discipline to do everything that you're doing right now?
There's the obvious answer in that you have an agenda, you have to go do this, you have to go do that at different times. But I think focusing on what you're doing at one specific time and figuring out in the moment how that can relate to something else. There's been multiple times in my athletic and academic career where karting and school have totally crossed over. For example, I knew nothing about aerodynamics before starting racing, and by grade 8, I made a wind tunnel for my Hot Wheels cars for my science fair project. Moments like that are where you realize that everything is connected in the way that you can learn a lot by doing a lot of different things. So for me, balancing my time is trying to find things that will relate and help me with other activities that I'm doing.
I am so glad that you mentioned the Hot Wheels cars because, I did wanna bring that up that I was reading about. So myself, my passion for cars and all of that came from when I was a little kid having Hot Wheels cars. Not Matchbox cars, Hot Wheels cars. Um, tell me a little bit about how Hot Wheels played, a role in you starting to get into cars and what they are to you now.
It was huge. I mean, Hot Wheels was a big inspiration for me. As I said earlier, I got my first one when I was 3 years old. I drove it all over the place. And I learned a lot about cars through it as well. Like each car has a different curve, a different spoiler, a different splitter. And as you get older, you start asking yourself why those things happen. And that kind of led into the science behind it as well. So not only did you see how the wheels rotated when you were a little kid, you also started to see the more in-depth stuff later on.
And now when you were playing with them, see, you took them out and played with them. You didn't just keep them in the package. I know some people who've got, like, this huge, massive collection that covers all the walls in an entire room. I all of mine are I took them out and played with them. And I did
Mine
have
are
a
well raced as well. Yeah.
okay. Now I did have a favorite one, and I have a hot rod that looks very similar to the blue 32 Ford that was my favorite Hot Wheel, and I have a 41 Chevy that's blue. So what was your favorite one from the whole shebang? And,
I don't think I could pick a favorite. They all mean something different to me. They all have a special memory attached to them. But definitely the race cars always stood out to me. The real race cars. The GT cars, the Formula 1 cars, the endurance cars, all of those were always the favorites and always the ones that were raced the most as a little kid.
okay. So, as you're doing your training, whether it's in the gym or on the racetrack, what's kind of a drill or a routine that's just that you really believe in and that really pushes you forward?
I learned in karting very early on that consistency is super important. You don't always have to be the fastest on one lap pace to get a good result in a race. If you can do the same lap time lap after lap after lap, it's huge. It's very important, and that's something I've taken into all walks of life. For my studying, you do lots of the same questions over and over and over again so that it doesn't matter whether you're a fast learner or not. You have the practice, you have the experience, and that's something I take into my exercise as well. It's not always about doing the heaviest weight one time. It's about doing a weight you can manage as much as you can, as consistently as you can, and with the best form as you can. And so being consistent in everything you do is something I've taken and adapted to all parts of my life.
So most people who watch racing, and I remember that I used to feel like this kind of when I was a little kid. I'd be like, "That how is that a sport? That's just driving a car. You get in the car and you drive to school, you do this, that, and the other." And it's not just about going fast, but what's the difference between just driving fast and racing?
Well, there's a certain amount of bravery required. I won't deny that. That is something that most people get right in their assumptions in motorsport. You do have to have a certain level of confidence behind a car, whether you're driving or racing. The biggest difference between driving and racing is that you have to be very aware of what you're doing in racing. You have to have good spatial perception and you have to be able to kind of predict what's happening in front of you and what could be happening behind you. Having that kind of sixth sense to know where other people are on the track is definitely something that's developed with experience and is the biggest difference between driving quickly on a track by yourself and racing against other people.
When, a company that I used to work for, we were one of the main sponsors for the Blancpain World Challenge series, and, what it what my favorite thing that I would get to do, and we'll dip into this a little bit more as we talk about the sponsors and stuff, but as a sponsor, I could bring customers to the races, take them into the paddock, and, like, play with the race simulators, and so I remember when I was in Sonoma driving the track on Sonoma in the race simulator. Have you ever driven there yet?
I have not driven at Sonoma, unfortunately, no.
Okay.
I would
So
like to, though.
that first turn, like it goes straight and then it's a left. And pretty much every time I would try to do it, I hit the wall, which was made it extra scary when I did a hot lap with a professional driver in a McLaren 620 because holy crap. I was like, how are we going to do this? I hit the wall every time. Um, Sorry, I kind of squirreled off onto the side there. So what I was trying to get at is the simulator. Like you also not only are spending time on the track, but you're spending a lot of time on the simulator. What do you look for, or how does it feel different when you're on the simulator as opposed to a real car?
The biggest physical difference is the fact there's no G-force, but software companies now, their sim racing technology is so advanced and so professional, and the online lobbies are very competitive. So sim racing is a huge help for any driver to try and accomplish what they're going to in real because it is fantastic experience. It does definitely count as part of your training. In fact, for me, especially living in Canada and going to race in the UK, that's huge for me because I can do it every day instead of having to live in the UK or having to fly back and forth more often. So for me, especially being an international athlete, the simulator is a huge part of my training and is very important in the process.
So at your level now, how much of the data and the analytics from the car are you looking at? And when did that actually start becoming part of the racing? I'm sure when you were very first in karts, you're just like, "Wow!" But when did it start, like, did you start to recognize the data and the analytics and put that into your style?
The team I joined very early on, they made sure they instilled the importance of going to do data, sitting down with the data instructor. That was all very important from a very early age. I think I would have been 9 or 10 years old when they sat me down in Briggs Cadet and said, "Look, here's your data. This is your speed. This is your exhaust temp. This is your lateral load, and this is how you try and put everything together to go faster on track." It started with a track map and there was a green line and a yellow line. And hey, here's your green line and here's your teammate who's faster than you on the yellow line. Your goal is to put your green line exactly on top of the yellow line. And that's basically how it started. Now, obviously, there's a lot more into it, and I'm older and I can understand more of that behind that. Now you have brake pressure, you have you have your GPS wheel speed, you have stresses and different forces on the engine, as well as in car cameras. And then that all relates to your gear shift changing, your throttle inputs, your brake inputs, your brake pressure. So it has advanced and it will advance as I move through motorsport. But that basic topic of putting your line on top of the person who's faster than you is the exact same. That's something that will stay the same throughout my rest of my career.
So every driver has a season or a weekend where the pressure just hits. Let's talk about yours. Tell me about a race weekend where things got chaotic and how you responded.
Every race weekend is chaotic. But there will for sure be high points and low points throughout a couple of weeks, especially when you do back to back races. I remember a time in the season of 2024, I was second in a race and somebody tried to overtake me for second and we ended up getting in an accident. And that happens. That's part of racing. But it was tough because we were doing well in the championship and it was definitely a blow there. So finished the race near the back, try and move on to next week. So the next Wednesday, we drive into Quebec to ICAR to race the Canadian Open. Everybody else had gone much earlier, so they had already had the practice. We showed up Thursday with 5 sessions to learn the track and 5 sessions to get the cart right. We didn't really get anywhere during practice. Come Friday morning, we qualified very close to the back of the grid, and that was a very low point. What was going wrong? What am I doing wrong? Are we still competitive? Like those thoughts definitely started circling. So we sat down that night and went through absolutely everything we could, my driving, the cart, the data, my teammates' data, everything we could think of. And I remember we changed the seat to just be a different material. And I had my doubts going into that afternoon because, how could that possibly help the situation we were in? And we just started finding time, 2 tenths here, 3 tenths there, 4 tenths there. Session after session after session, we kept finding more time and pushing the chassis in that direction. And throughout the weekend, we climbed our way through the pack again and finished the final on Sunday second. That set of 2 weeks and being able to adapt like that is a constant reminder for me that that one important decision changed the entire rest of the weekend. So it's always important to consider everything. And it's a reminder that that one decision can change everything.
Yeah. When you kinda get in those messy situations on the track, what's your internal dialogue, or what do you start thinking about? Because it would be easy to just kinda jump on yourself and beat yourself up, especially if you feel like you made a mistake. But if you do that, you can't keep competing, right? So what's kind of the internal voice, or what are you saying to yourself when you get into one of these?
It's definitely a tricky situation. I think the important thing for me and for I'm sure a lot of young drivers out there is just to remember to have confidence in yourself. You've gotten to this point for a reason and that can help you a lot. But I think for me, the biggest thing is to have an encouraging team. It's really it's really quite something when you come off track, you've had a bad session, you're unhappy with it, for the team to sit down with you and go, "Okay, here's what's not working. We need a solution and we're going to help you get there." So having that encouraging set of people behind you, be it siblings, parents, friends, teammates, coaches, is a huge part of a driver's mentality and is one I've been very lucky to have.
So how did you transition, or just give me a brief, like, how we went from karting, what the next level was, and how you got to the car that you're with now and the team with Ginetta Racing?
So we karted in the UK this summer. We ran the British Wera Tools Karting Championship after World Finals last year. And it was a huge learning curve. Karting in the UK is on a whole nother level compared to what I've experienced. So we focused this season on development. The season started out rough. It was definitely a learning curve, but throughout the season, we kept making improvements and getting better and better racecraft. Throughout the karting season in the UK, we heard about drivers my age testing Ginetta Juniors. And so we did our research. We tried to find out everything we could. And we ran into someone in the paddock, at our last UK race, who said, "Yeah, you'd be welcome to test a Ginetta Junior car. I'll get you in touch with a guy who knows this guy." A typical racing connection. And so the Monday after the test day, we took 7 trains out to Wales to do a test with the team that had offered, and we did the test, and it went really well. It's a dream come true to drive a race car for the first time. It's really a special experience, especially when it's something you've been working towards for that long. So we had an amazing day. We were on pace relatively quickly, and from there, we got recommended to do the Ginetta Junior Scholarship Team. It's something anyone can sign up for, the Ginetta Junior Scholarship. It's basically an event which tests everything you would need to be a professional: your driving ability, your fitness ability, and your media ability. And so you do this reality style competition where you're in the car, you're in the gym, you're in the media building doing interviews, and it was an amazing experience to go and do that. But we had a really strong results at the end of that. We were top 7 out of 60 very talented drivers, including the current European karting champion, the current world champion in my category. And so that was kind of the moment where we're like, okay, if I can drive this car, we need to be in this series. And we've had good results with it so far, and that's what's pushing me on to make sure we get the chance to do it next year.
Yeah, so you said it was very special to get into the car for the first time. Tell me a little bit about the kind of car that you're driving now, and where the difference is, because it seems like they'd be quite a bit, from the carts that you were driving before.
Ginetta Juniors are fantastic fun to drive. They're super light, 830 kilogram, 1.8 liter, um, about 100 brake horsepower. You get to about 180 kilometers an hour. And they're great fun because they're so light. They're very difficult chassis to drive. The sequential gearbox is always fun to play with. So it's great fun to drive. And because of the lightweight and the small compact size, it creates very good racing. And so that's what makes it a world class breeding ground for young drivers from across the world.
Yeah, and speaking of world-class breeding ground, the graduates from there, the people who have gone through, let's talk a little bit about them, kinda mention who they are and what they mean to you.
I mean, the first one that comes to mind is your current Formula One world champion, Lando Norris. He did Ginetta when he was 14, and I'm sure it gave him the abilities that he has now. It's a critical starting ground from a racecraft perspective, from a visibility perspective, from a connections perspective as well. So I'm sure he enjoyed it. I'm sure that was a great first step for him. And it's a special connection to me because I was actually at Lando Norris's first race, the 2019 Australian Grand Prix, and I've been a fan ever since. It's been really special to watch his journey to Formula One World Championship. And it's even more special that I've been given the same chance he got. Um, and so I'm looking to follow in his footsteps, not necessarily into Formula One, but to carry myself similar to the way he does throughout my career.
So super interesting that when you were 8 years old or so, you're in Australia. What is your dad or your mom perhaps or your family, like, really into racing? Because that's a pretty big trip to take to go to see a race. How did that happen?
The timing worked out that well. We weren't super into racing at the time. My dad was always into cars, and my mom was very competitive, as I mentioned. But neither of them had a particular interest in Formula One. So we were there for a vacation at the time, and we got lucky with the timing. It was a bit of a fluke, really. And so we got the tickets we could find, and we went and we saw his first race. And that was for me where I was like, okay, if I need to try this, I really need to push this and drive this. But neither of my parents were particularly interested in racing. So it's really been me driving this as a career for myself, and I'm lucky they've been so supportive.
So since Lando came out of that school, does he ever come back and visit? Have you gotten to meet him yet? That's part A of this question, and then part B, after you get famous and you rise up through the rankings, are you gonna go back and visit?
So at the Janetta Junior Scholarship, a lot of the Janetta alumni come back to be instructors and to be judges of the driving ability. And that was a very cool experience. I got in the car and sitting next to me is Adam Smalley, the McLaren GT3 driver. And that was like a whoa, pinch me kind of moment. Because I've been watching his career for a while now, and to be sitting in a car with him is special in itself. But for me to drive him around was really quite something, a moment I won't forget. Lando Norris himself hasn't come back yet, but I'm hoping he does because I would very much like to meet him.
Right. And then, make sure 2 things. After you get famous, you come back and do another follow-up interview with me, and that you go back and visit that school because of how special that was for you. I think that's gonna be fantastic to, give back like that.
Yeah, I would love to.
So let's widen the lens a little bit and let's talk about how, being a student and having all of this going on. I mentioned earlier, back when I was in high school, I wrestled. That was a very much, we would go to a meet on the weekend or, during the week. But yours takes up a bit more time and you're traveling all over the world. How do you keep up with your school while you're traveling and competing?
I've been lucky as I go through the grades that school becomes more and more on the computer. So that's definitely a part of it, and it takes some dedication to be, working at airports, working on planes, working in buses. But I really owe it to my teachers and my school. They've done a fantastic job keeping me up to date on everything at school while I'm away and keeping my grades where they are. Obviously, that takes some effort on my part, but they really do a fantastic job of educating me while I'm off chasing my dreams, and I'm really grateful to them for that.
And how do you handle, especially at 15 years old, how do you handle, you know, the pressure, the expectations from your team, from your parents, and people watching you that you don't know? Like, it seems like it'd be a little overwhelming.
For sure, it can be at some points, but it's always been important for me to remember, this is what you do for fun. No matter how real it gets, how serious it is, this is what I love doing, and this is what I always will love doing. And so remembering that I'm doing it for fun, I'm doing it for myself, it's always important, and that kind of helps you stay grounded during a stressful race weekend.
Yeah. So when you do have those kind of moments of self-doubt, which everybody that's a human does, what do you do when your confidence dips? How do you keep yourself moving forward and not beating yourself up?
That's a good question. It's something that you learn to do throughout your career, and it's something I'm still learning to do. I'm sure that my racing career will have low points in the future, and I'm sure that it will have high points in the future. Reminding yourself that this is what you love doing kind of keeps you steady. And of course, having a supportive team and supportive parents behind that is hugely important. There's been race weekends where I got through because of my mom, and there's race weekends where my mom got through because of me. Having that special relationship with my mechanic and my mom, like, throughout my karting career has definitely got to that point. And I know that will change going into cars next year because she won't be my mechanic, but I'm sure she'll be there, and I'm sure she'll be as supportive as ever.
All right. So let's talk a little bit about your routine before races. Do you have kind of a routine or music that you listen to or some food that you eat or just like some kind of a pattern that you do before you get in the race car?
I like to just stand still. I like to close my visor. I like to go over what I've learned in practice, what I've learned over my previous years of racing. There's not necessarily a music or something I listen to like a lot of people think there is. It's for sure true that race car drivers have a lot of those little rituals before you get in the car. That is totally true. For me, it's just to stay grounded in what I'm doing, where I am, and what's happening in the moment. And I do that by just closing my visor, staying calm, staying still. Um, the deep breaths approach, I suppose you could say.
So as I think of myself with this, like you very mature. You're having a great conversation. I think when I was 15 years old, I could not have really handled this situation, and I would have just been a kind of a goofball. But what's something in racing that's really helped you mature to get to this level?
I think just the level of responsibility of the whole situation. I mean, you get your driver's license at 16 years old, and you know that from a very young age. And then someone hands you a miniature race car and says, "Go have fun." You're constantly in with other kids, and you're trusting your competitors just as much as yourself in a race. And so that adds a certain level of responsibility and maturity to every driver's career from a very young age, especially since it's been me driving this career, me pushing my parents to continue in my career. It's meant that I've grown up very quickly. I've managed all sorts of things. I've learned all sorts of important travel skills. I'm managing the business stuff now and my own physical ability as well. So it's been on my shoulders, and I've had amazing support, but definitely having that on yourself is definitely what helps you grow up quickly and mature the way you do.
So sometimes maybe if you're having an off day or, um, maybe you're just not feeling it that day, but you're put into the situation where you have to perform. What's something that keeps you hungry on those days when you're just not feeling it?
I find those days all the time, especially when you're traveling, you get homesick, you miss your family, you miss your friends, you even miss school sometimes, as hard as that may be for some to believe. But remembering that you want to make people at home proud is always something that's good to remember. You're there to do well, you're there to compete, and you want to make them proud. And you can only do that by focusing on what's happening in the moment, being ready for what's coming next and excited about what you're doing while you're there is key because you'll always be coming home. You'll get to see your friends and family again. So you look through some family photos before the race and you remember that you're there to make them proud and there to chase what you love, and then you'll get to go home eventually, and that's kind of what gets you through those long days.
And looking behind you, you've got a whole mess of awards and trophies back there. Um, how does it feel when you win and you're on the podium and you're given that? It seems like it would be an amazing feeling.
It's definitely an adrenaline rush. Every result you get is, satisfaction of your hard work's paid off, but also a reminder of, this is how far you could go, right? If you've gotten to this point, get to the next point. So having those trophies behind me is definitely a confidence boost when I get up in the morning, but more importantly, it's a reminder to me of how far I can go and how far I could take this career. And so it's inspiration for me to always keep pushing.
Okay. So now let's kind of move into the future a little bit and talk about where this is taking you and where you want to go. What does the next 12 months look like for you? And what are you building towards right now?
Right now, we're definitely looking for funding. The racing is an expensive sport. There's no way of getting around that. And, my parents have done everything they can to get me to this point, but the financial scale of support needed for car racing far exceeds what they can do and what they have been doing for kart racing. So the next 12 months for me is really about finding a balance between your driving, your fitness, and your media or your business side of motorsport. So it's something I've been developing this year, and it's something that definitely has a long way to go. So the next 12 months will be definitely a learning 12 months, racing a car for the first time and being in a team that size for the first time, not having my mom as a mechanic for the first time. There will be a lot of firsts next year, first sponsor, first benefactor, those type of things. So it'll be a 12 months of firsts, definitely in experiences and hopefully in results as well.
Yeah. And what do you expect that the biggest differences are going to be for you? Is it the car, the tires, the braking, the weight transfer, the length of the races? What's really going to be you feel the biggest difference at this level?
All of those factors play a difference, and the obvious one for me is it's on the wrong side. I've gotta go and, adjust your spatial perception to be driving on the right side of the road, and it shouldn't make a difference coming from single-seater carts, but for some reason it does. I can't quite explain that yet. So, I'll see if I can figure that out. But, it's a very different style of racing from karting. So, your braking changes, you've got gears to worry about now. Your car's a lot bigger, a lot heavier. You've got the weight transfer. Fuel load is gonna start making a bigger difference. You're gonna do standing starts for the first time. So, you learn a lot in your Janetta junior year, or so I've been told, and I'm very looking forward to learning as much as I can.
Okay. And if we zoom out, what's like the main goal, like your big hairy audacious goal in racing? Where do you see what is it?
My ultimate goal would be to win the 24 Hours of Le Mans in LMDH. So, as I've matured as a driver and an athlete and a person, I've realized that my skill sets very much align themselves with endurance racing. The consistency, the physical ability, the mental ability. I like pushing myself, and I feel like endurance racing is the best place to do that. So the ultimate goal for me would be to be a professional in endurance racing, and the ultimate goal would be to win the longest race, 24 Hours of Le Mans.
And social media plays such a big part in everything that you guys are doing now. What's kind of your take on social media and how do you run that side? And what kind of goals do you have for your social media to help you raise?
It's definitely something that's very different from when F1 drivers now were starting out. Social media plays a huge part in your career and your business side of it. As I said, I mean, I've only had my LinkedIn for 4 months and it's gotten me these incredible opportunities. So, heading into 2026, I'm kind of looking to expand on that into some other social media accounts and getting good quality hardware to make good quality content. So working on that is another thing I'll have to learn going into next year.
Yeah, the more you put it out there, the more people are gonna follow you and the quicker you're gonna go up the ladder. So right now, at this point of your career, what do you feel is the most needed thing? Is it seat time, funding, coaching, exposure?
Definitely funding, for sure. I've had the pleasure of racing many great drivers across my karting career from all over the world, from Canada, North America, and Europe now. But the one consistent challenge for me has always been funding. My parents have sacrificed a lot to get me to where I am today, and I would very much like to continue with my career. I'm encouraged by what the feedback I've had so far in Janetta Junior and where I think I can get to. So to continue on with that and continue going up the ladder, the next step is definitely finding funding.
And for this season, this upcoming 12 months, that's gonna have so many different new things in it. What would you say would, make this year a win even if you didn't get a title?
Making this year a win for me would be, first of all, having the experience. It's a unique opportunity that not a lot of people get. So no matter what, I will go and I will enjoy it, and that will make it a win for me. The other great thing about Janetta is since the alumni are so vast, you make a lot of great connections. We already have. So going and meeting as many different people as possible and getting these people's perspectives on my driving, on my fitness, on the business side of it, all of those connections help, and I'm definitely looking to expand my connections, and my network. That would make the year a win for me.
Okay. So before we close out, I want to dip into the really important part. I wanna talk about the business side of racing because that's really where the real meat is. As you approach a sponsor, now that we're looking for that kind of funding, what do you actually bring beyond the logo on a suit? Like, what are sponsors getting for working with you?
As you said, there's the obvious, and Janetta is great for that. There's a lot of viewership. There's a lot of great places to put your logo and the slogans and the marketing. But racing's always been and always will be a sport of connection, connection to the car, connection to your team, connection to the track. And what I think is the most special thing about my sponsorship package is the level of connection you could have to my career and to my world of motorsport. We can offer for next year VIP hospitality, access to my garage, ride along hot laps with me. These are the type of opportunities that really connect you to motorsport. And it's not a connection a lot of people get to have. It's a unique opportunity to be that close to the action and have those experiences, those otherwise exclusive experiences.
Yeah. And what kind of partners are you looking for? Local supporters, national brands, long-term builders? What seems the most appealing, or is it just a shotgun for we just need some sponsors right now?
We do just need some sponsors right now, is the short answer. The long answer would be I love to support Canadian. I think being, to my knowledge, the first Canadian driver to enter Janetta Junior as a championship is a special thing. And I would love to be able to represent for Canada, not only from a driving side and an athlete side, but also from a business side. A Canadian brand that wants that global exposure and taking North American talent and business onto a European or world stage is a unique opportunity and something I would like to do.
Yeah. So I was really impressed with your pitch deck also. W who built that for you, and are you building a website to kind of mirror along with that? Because, it was really fantastic. It looked like there was a lot of thought put into it. I would feel somebody with a marketing background, even where they made the perseverance and perseverance, like, the acronym with your name. Who where did all that part come from? Because it's fantastic.
Thank you. It's something I put a lot of work into over the past 3 months. I've been asking my friends for advice, my parents for advice, and expanding network in as many ways as I can. My parents have a lot of great friends who've been really helpful for that, to build the sponsorship deck, to make the logos, the slogans. A lot of it's just pieced together with my normal life. The logo started out as a digital art project for school, and it turned into what I want my brand to stand for and what I want it to represent. So I've taken bits and bobs from everywhere and from everyone's different ideas, but I was the one who ended up putting it together and made those cool decisions. So it's a bit of a medley of a lot of different people's advice and a lot of different people's opinions.
Okay. And what do you feel makes you a good ambassador for a sponsor, into the racing?
I mean, you can stand and list qualities and most people will, but what I want to do is unique. It's not every day that you can offer somebody that connection to motorsport. It's not every day that you can go and sit in a race car with a race car driver, and those are the type of opportunities I would like to be giving back. I wish I could have had those opportunities as a kid if somebody had offered me that type of chance. So I'm more looking to give back, more looking to form a meaningful partnership with someone who will really appreciate the opportunity, and I'm looking to do as much for them as I can.
Okay, so another thing that's really unique about you specifically is you're Canadian. So I do want to ask a couple little background questions. Do you say debris or debris?
Debris,
Pasta or pasta?
pasta,
Mazda or Mazda?
Mazda.
Okay. One, two out of three. Oh, Canada. So being Canadian, tell me a little bit about what it feels like to be representing Canada and being the only Canadian team in this race series.
It's definitely a tricky situation. Motorsport is much bigger in Europe and the UK and the US than it is in Canada, so it's definitely adds an extra challenge to getting noticed and getting recognition, and then obviously that affects your trying to find sponsors. That's part of the reason we went to go race in the UK this year. At the same time, it's an amazing place to live, and I'm very proud to be representing overseas.
Okay. What do you think, like maybe one misconception that sponsors have about working with young drivers?
I think a common misconception would be the fact that, they're just giving a young kid some money. There's a lot more to sponsoring motorsport of any form than just giving someone money. Sponsorships throughout history have provided some of the most iconic moments for fans and sponsors alike over the years. I mean, you look at Senna and Marlboro. I mean, it's an iconic duo and it's one that's lasted for eons and will always be there. It's an important part of history. So, being able to make you part of history and make you part of my career is something that is definitely a unique experience and extends a lot more than just a financial transaction.
So let's kind of dip into a little fun part here. I like to do a little bit of a rapid fire. I'm just going to ask you the questions. Just don't even think about it for too long. Give me a one or two, maybe three sentence answer, but keep them kind of short. You ready?
Okay, sounds good.
What's the most intense track for you at the moment?
Blighton Park.
The best advice that you've ever gotten?
Always focus on the guy in front of you.
One habit that you're obsessed with improving?
Physical ability. I love exercise.
Your biggest strength as a driver?
Consistency.
The biggest weakness that you're always tweaking or working on and fixing?
You could be obvious and say braking because that's something you'll always be fixing. But for me, it's the business.
And if you could tell a 10-year-old you one thing, looking back, what would that be?
It's totally worth it. Keep going. It's a long road, but I'm glad 10-year-old me decided to stick with it
All right, finish this sentence for me. I'm just getting started because.
because I love it. Love everything to do with it. The adrenaline, the speed, the community, all of it.
Well, Pierce, it's been a pleasure to have you on here. I'm so excited to keep following your journey. I'm excited that you're working with Ralph Hansen. I'm excited that you're sponsoring Canada on a worldwide stage. And so thank you so much for taking some time out of your day to share this with me. And do know that kind of one of my things that I always tell you guys, when you get famous and big, you got to come back and give me another interview.
Thank you for the chance to being here. And yes, I will definitely be back.
Okay. Now, if somebody wants to follow you on social media or if there's a sponsor that's interested in getting a hold of you, how do they do that?
I'm very active on LinkedIn. However, I recognize that's not always everybody's thing. So there is some information about me on LinkedIn, or if you know Ralph, please feel free to contact Ralph. I'm sure he'll be a great resource for you in answering any questions. And in terms of social media, we are looking to expand for 2026. So there will be things coming out all under Pearce Wade Racing.
Yeah, well, you have hooked on to a strong one with Ralph Hansen Jr., the CEO of Pegasus Marketing, Pegasus Marketing Group. And you know what? If your eyes can keep up with it, you should be following Pearce.